The first property I bought, there was a homeless guy living there. The bank had owned it and they were paying electricity. The neighbor had pulled an electrical line across to his house because his power was off. There was a washer and dryer there when I bought it, and then before I got the back door on, it was gone.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
Hello and welcome to episode 73. My guest today is Benjamin McClellan, the owner of Blue Door Properties. At a very young age of 29, he already has 14 units under his name. And I think you're going to find his story very inspiring because Benjamin comes from a very interesting background. And I cannot wait for you to share it with our audience today, Benjamin. Thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you, Brian. It's great to be on the show.
Now, I am going to start with a question that I've never asked any other guest on this show. Why is it that you hate popcorn so much?
Well, it started quite a ways back. I was about 8 years old. My family took a road trip for a year and a half, so we were, I guess, technically homeless, but we had a travel trailer traveling around, and so we worked for this farm truck patching in Florida. We ended up in Florida, and someone had given us 100 pounds of popcorn, and so we basically ate 100 pounds of popcorn over a period of time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's basically how that happened. Just my parents were pretty frugal. So whatever we got, we were thankful for.
Yeah. What was your parents' situation? What did they do? And tell me about just the economic situation when you were growing up.
Well, yeah. So my parents, my dad was a computer programmer, and he just got sick of it. He gave it all up, and we basically went on the road, and he tried to start his own business. So for a while, it was pretty tight. Well, for most of all my growing up was tight. My dad one year made $10,000, and we lived off of that with 8 siblings.
Yeah, and that
myself.
was a good year?
I don't know if that was a good year. That was, it ended up where he'd write everything off in taxes, so he'd be basically at zero.
And you had 8 brothers and sisters.
8 brothers and sisters. We grew up just on a little farm, working in the business. I was homeschooled, just kind of working on the land, working for Dad, working quite a bit from a young age. My dad would get us out there working from 8 years old, handing drills, handing him screws. My dad had a theory of just working, kind of like a lifestyle work where he'd work when he needed money or felt like it. So it's kind of interesting. Basically, when we didn't have money, Dad would be like, okay, we got to get out and work, or we got to eat beans and rice until we get through this. So he was a great teacher, taught me so many different things, taught me to work hard.
Yeah, and I saw a picture of you at the age of 14. You had built a kind of a little house in your backyard. It was a little less than a house, a little more than a playhouse. It was kind of a real structure with a roof and windows and everything. And did you build that yourself?
Yeah, I think it was like 12 to 13, I started getting into building. I built a mini barn that I sold for $1,200, and then I just enjoyed it. I would draw up plans. So then one year I dug a pond, quite a decent sized pond in our back area, and then I wanted to build a little cabin by it. So it's about 200 square feet with a loft in there. Sawed all the wood on my dad's sawmill.
Interesting background. It sounds like you ate a lot of beans and rice and popcorn. Maybe money was tight, but you also learned a good work ethic and learned how to build things.
Yeah, it was very different from most people's growing up. We just didn't have a ton of materialistic things. But we grew up with love. Parents were caring and loving people that taught us well. When I moved to one of the poorer neighbors in Grand Rapids, I was amazed with all the stuff that people have. So I always grew up wanting to help like the poor, and I realized I had probably less than most people had in the United States, at least.
So you realize that when in helping the poor, that they actually had more than you had when you were growing up. Huh?
Yeah, personal or like people have just nice fancy clothes. We grew up, going to Goodwill and just getting whatever hand-me-downs. So I was just amazed how people would just spend everything they have on just useless things that don't get you anywhere.
So we're going to get to the real estate here, but it's an interesting path. I mean, I think it's important to understand you and where you are now in your real estate investing, to understand where you come from. You did go to college. How were you able to afford college?
When I was 20, went a little late to college, moved out, and I bought a house in Grand Rapids. I just found the cheapest house I could buy. It was $12,000, and lived there. As my roommates basically paid for the house, because I just got a whole bunch of roommates in there.
So you did the house hacking.
Did a house hacking. Yep. This was an extreme house hacking because it had no running water and no gas for like 6 months while we lived there, 6 to 9 months.
So you bought a house for $12,000. What year was this?
That was 2009.
2000. Okay, so it was a good time to buy a house. No water, no gas. How were you even able to live there?
Well, we did have a kitchen sink, so we had water to there. Actually, originally we didn't even have that. We just, because all the plumbing was just completely shot, so we just have to turn on the water valve by the meter to get a little water. Because I didn't have money to fix all the pipes, so I just slowly lived there, and we had a wood stove there, so we cooked on that and we heated with that.
How were you even able to convince roommates to come live with you and pay you rent in a house that really had no water or gas? I don't even understand that.
Well, I had their parents paying the rent.
What kind of rent were you charged? You should be paying that.
It was
what kind of rent were you charging?
Like $100 a room.
Really?
Yeah, it was nothing. I had some friends that had gone on mission trips so they were used to like the oversea, and they kind of wanted to be against the system. So let's just rough it,
Urban pioneer.
Yeah. So ones that wanted to rough it.
Wow. I mean, obviously you didn't have a certificate of occupancy from the city. You were able to get by without worrying about that, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the city didn't. It was still. Basically, it had some issues. It was foreclosed. So originally, it sold for $95,000 in 2005, and then just a few years later, I bought it, and it had a ton of water damage. The pipes had froze and damaged it, but the city wasn't really involved with anything.
So were you improving it while you were living in it?
Yeah. As soon as I would get a little money saved up, then I would work on the plumbing. That was the main issue.
Did you know anything about plumbing?
Yeah, I had done, my dad was a great teacher, and he taught me most everything about construction. And then I learned it myself. I've worked for builders and stuff. So
growing up, you had learned a lot of the lessons of the trade and were able to do a lot of this work yourself.
Yeah, between me and friends and my brother, we did all the work. My parents would come down sometimes and help out.
I guess if you got your whole family there, you could probably get it all knocked out in a day, huh?
Well, it was a major haul. I had to rewire it, replumb it. The wiring was working when I was there, but it was just the old knob and tube. So I at one point replaced that.
Wow. Now, where was this property?
It's right by Franklin and Eastern.
Franklin and Eastern.
So it's on Henry, south of Franklin.
Okay. And you lived there for how many years?
All the way until last year. I got married, so I've lived there since 2009.
And what state was it in last year when you moved out?
It's come along. There's still a couple things. There's some trim work to do, but other than that, it's in much improved shape.
Good. And you bought it for 12. You were fixing it as you were able to come up with the money to put back into it. Where were you coming up with this money? I mean, you're going to college at the time.
I would work as well, doing construction, like side jobs here and there. And basically, I worked at the college as well as just a minimum wage job there at the college. So yeah, it was not easy to come up with the money, but it came slowly but surely.
Wow. Did you end up refinancing this house? What's it worth now?
I haven't got it appraised, but I did refinance it and pulled out $52,000. So that was 2 years ago. So it would have appraised probably 70% of the value of that. So
now that you're no longer living in it, are you just renting it out?
my brother lives there, and he's rents out the rooms to other roommates. So it's kind of a shared living, rent by room.
And what are you getting every month from it?
Total, it's about $1,200.
Wow, good for you. So you took a house that you paid $12,000 for, and you're now getting $1,200 a month for it.
Yeah, no, it's been great. People would say, like, why are you moving there? It's going to be so dangerous. It's going to be, nobody's going to pay you rent, all this stuff. I was like, well, if I buy it, I live in it with college. I bought it for $12,000. If I don't like it, I could just walk away from it. I would pay that much in rent, so it doesn't make sense not to buy for me.
What was your experience like? I mean, you talked about, because that area in 2009, it wasn't the best area, and it is a kind of a lower income area. What was your experience like living there?
Yeah, that side was a little bit rough. We had a lot of incidents in the area, seeing people sell drugs and stuff. It was not a safe neighborhood. I didn't feel threatened at any time, but it was rough at times. We did a lot of mentoring with some of the youth in the area, so we ended up kind of befriending some of them and helping them out and stuff. So that ended up where things would get stolen, things would get, missing from time to time. That was kind of probably the more frustrating stuff. I had a lot of tools stolen at once, broke into my garage, but.
So you did get to know some of your neighbors, do some mentoring with some of the kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I got to know the neighborhood, try to, be an example to some of the kids. There's not very many father figures in the area.
What kind of effect do you think you had on that neighborhood?
Well, I don't know. I guess later on I'll see. I think they've always had positive things to say. The parents would say, thanks for, we do different programs with the kids and take them on positive outings. We would take them to Lake Michigan. Some of them never seen Lake Michigan, so it's kind of cool.
Good. So you do own 14 units. So at what point did you start buying more, and how did that work out?
Yeah. Basically, I had always been I love real estate. I love properties. I always wanted to buy more, but I was just always held back because I don't want to be a landlord. I wasn't like the, strict, tough person that I thought a landlord had to be. So it kind of held me back for a while. But then after I refinanced my house, I got into selling on land contracts. So I bought them, would fix them up, and then sell them owner finance. So I did that to 3 properties.
When did you start doing this?
2012. So in 2012, started doing that. So then I said, well, then I won't have tenants. I'll just sell them to owner occupiers.
So you were buying them on land contract, or buying them and then
buying them
on land contract?
Buying them. So yeah, I bought them with the proceeds from the property that I had bought for $12,000.
With the $52,000 that you pulled out.
So I bought one for $19,000, fixed it up a little bit, and then sold it. Sold it for $33,000. I could have gotten a lot more. I didn't really fix it up very much. I basically just kind of did some paint, did some carpet, and then sold it. I obviously could have sold it for quite a bit more, but I was kind of helping out a refugee family that didn't have any credit. So it worked out well. They paid me off within a year.
Oh, so they bought it and then just ended up buying you out.
Yep, they just bought me out. So it was good. I made, I think I had it for 10% interest on the loan. So I made all the money back for sure. And then I did it again, bought a property for $24,000 and then sold that for $44,000. Fixed it up a little bit and sold it on land contract.
And are they still paying on that, or have they?
They've paid that off as well. I had financed it over 5 years, complete payoff, and they had paid it off early, both of them. And then the third one did as well, paid it off early. I bought that one for $10,000 and sold it for $29,000.
In all three of these cases, were they families that otherwise could not get credit or get any sort of loan?
Right. Yeah. They had hardworking people, but they had no clue of how to get credit, how to build credit. So there'd be no way. And these properties the bank wouldn't finance them either. They're
too small.
Plus, not in great shape. So it's kind of just an easy way of quickly making some cash, getting them a place to live. They've been fixing it up themselves.
So was that, you kind of have a sort of a philanthropic background to begin with. Was that sort of your way of doing some micro investing in the neighborhoods? Yeah.
My thought was, I'm all about business that's, ethical. So basically, how can both people make a profit, make a deal that is helping people out, with, also benefiting yourself. So it's a win-win.
And what do you see as, just in those three examples, what do you see as the result of that? Do you drive by those houses now, and are they well kept? Are they in good shape? Do the families still live there?
Yeah, the families still live there. I think it was a great thing for them. It worked out well for me. They live there. They're very happy. I've kind of built like a name in that community. So these are refugee families from the Congo. So like wherever I am, if people see me, they always talk. So it's kind of like a little community. And I have quite a few tenants from that now, because I'm basically the guru in their eyes.
The one who can help them with housing.
The one, who can help with housing. Have people call me all the time, and do you have something for rent? I never have issue renting something.
You definitely have some incredible experience and inspirational background, but at some point you got interested in millionaires, like what it is that creates wealth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I grew up my parents kind of went the other way of like, let's just make it simple. We don't want to live in the rat race. And I started thinking, well, I don't want to live in the rat race, but I also don't want to live just, when the bank account goes to zero, I got to get out and work. So my dad was like somewhat retired, but he's always kind of just worked when he wanted to, basically just kind of, living very simply. So I started saying, I don't want to live this way, mainly because of my fiance pushing me. So then I started studying millionaires and billionaires, of just like how do they think, how did they get there, what ways did they use to get there. So I just started studying that on my own as I was going to college, and just started reading books about them. And
what was your conclusion about millionaires and billionaires?
Most all of them had a considerable portion in real estate, and some of them had built their whole fortune off of real estate. And that just clicked in with me, saying, I enjoy building, I enjoy seeing things come together on a structure.
So how are you creating wealth through real estate? Let's talk about some of your other deals that you've done. We talked about the house that you bought for $12,000 and lived in with no water, no gas. We talked about the 3 houses that you bought and then sold on land contract. Let's talk about the rest of your portfolio.
Yeah, Brian. So then I was going to do another deal where I bought it with cash and sold it on land contract, but I just had all my money tied up, basically. So then I was like, well, this isn't really scalable because I'm now the bank and I have to have, I'm holding the note. So I don't have that kind of money to keep that going. So then one had paid me off. So I used that money to buy another property and I just held it. And people, the community that I was working with, they said, well, we're trying to buy something, can you do us another land contract? And I just have to, because I just wanted to build a portfolio that wouldn't just keep turning over, where I could have own the property, because basically it would rent for the same price, but in the end of 5 years, I wouldn't own the property anymore if I sold on land contract. So I was like, well, I have to still own it, So basically I just kept buying and holding. So then from then I started buying as aggressively as I could. I would find some private money. I would find people that wanted to invest with me. Basically any creative way I could, I would try to get it done. So from then on out, I just haven't sold anything since.
So it's been buy and hold ever since, huh?
Yep. Yep.
And how's that working for you? I mean, were you staying with the same model of buying for like tens of thousands of dollars, $10,000, $30,000 in that range, and then fixing it up? Yeah, I basically have changed to trying to buy in places where I see growth, where I see like in the path. So at some point, I'm still trying to buy stuff cheaper because I don't have a ton of money. But basically being more strategic about where I buy rather than just buying the cheapest house. There's like, okay, I don't really like that neighborhood. I can buy here and it's going to be, in time, it's going to be a lot better, hopefully. You've been buying these with other people's money. Have you been using any bank loans?
Yeah, I'm working on a commercial loan right now, actually with Scott Jennings from First National, on basically pulling out some money from properties that I own free and clear and using that money for fix up or different areas like that. I actually don't have any loans other than the HELOC that's on that first property. I have some, personal loans. In that, I have also bought some property on owner finance more recently.
It sounds like you've got a lot of liquidity in these properties.
Yeah, debt is quite low since I've bought everything with bought cheaper properties. Plus, I've done all the work on fixing them up. Kind of cash flowed that from the other properties and my job.
Do you have an ultimate goal for your money? Like, at what point do you feel that you'll have enough passive income from your cash flow that you can stop having to enjoy watching it grow and just kind of start enjoying it like your wife does?
Yeah, right now I could quit my job and, be retired, quote unquote, with the cash flow from the properties. It wouldn't be a ton of money, but it's as much as my job is, basically. So I could do that, but I think I would like to try to get to 100 properties before I start just kicking back.
Why is 100 properties the magic number?
I don't think it's a magic number. I'll probably up it when I get to there. But I think it's just a goal that I've set.
Now, is that 100 units? Because
100 units,
you're now starting to look. Talk about what your goal is now, because you've kind of done the single family. You've got a couple duplexes, 14 units altogether, and that seems to be going very well for you. What's the next step?
Well, I think the next step is to try to get into larger units and possibly sell off some of the single families that are in a little tougher neighborhoods to get. Right now I have great cash flow, but I have more headaches of, just kind of things that a tenant base would in that area would have. There's just a little more complaints, a little more this and that, So right now it's fine because I get quite good cash flow, but I like to transition into larger units that can be managed by a larger company. Right now I'm self-managing all the properties I have now.
Talk about your role as a property manager. How has that been for you?
It's just been a big learning curve, learning so many different things on how to keep everything straight, all the different bills to pay, all the different stuff. It's been quite a lot of work. How are you learning how to do this? Are you taking classes? Are you utilizing the RPOA? First off, I just have a subscription to Audible, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And then I listen to all sorts of podcasts, definitely this one. And some of the other podcasts out there are just really great. And then RPOA, talking with people, learning just different books on just business in general, on how to manage a business. It's been good, but I'm really actually looking to turn stuff over to property management.
So you're at that point now where maybe it's time to step back from the day-to-day management and let someone else handle it.
Right. Yeah, I just think about with my business of like, what do I really enjoy in the business, and doing what I really enjoy, and then trying to hand off stuff that I don't enjoy to somebody else.
Tell me a story about an issue you've dealt with in buying your properties as the owner or landlord.
Oh, wow. There's been a lot of interesting things. I think one of the first ones that was kind of a learning curve was the first property I bought. When I bought it, there was a homeless guy living there because the back door was just not secured.
This is the $12,000 house.
It's the $12,000
gas
house.
or water.
Yep, and the bank had owned it, and they were paying electricity. So the neighbor had pulled an electrical line across to his house to power his house because his power was off. And so I had to evict the homeless guy, saying, "Hey, I bought this property. It's time." He moved out, and plus he
what was that
stole the washer and dryer.
So the homeless guy stole the washer. Where would the homeless guy put the washer and dryer?
I don't know. There was a washer and dryer there when I bought it, and then before I got the back door on, it was gone. Plus some mattresses and other things in there.
What was that? A scary conversation to talk to the homeless guy living in your house?
Yeah, I'm not a big confrontation person, so these are the things I had to learn to be able to get around in this.
So
business.
How did you confront him? What did you say?
I just said that I bought the property. He needed to move his stuff out. It was, we were gonna clean it up and fix it up, and he had to get out. So he moved all his stuff out. It wasn't really
no problem there.
It wasn't.
He didn't argue with you.
He didn't. No. So it worked well. I mean, he left all the trash, but
left his trash, but took your washer and dryer.
Left his trash, took the value,
loaded them in the grocery cart, and pushed them down the sidewalk.
Yeah. The biggest issue I have is teaching tenants to take care of the property. We have a lot of them. A lot of the tenants are not from the United States. So there's a big language barrier. I have. They have not an understanding of the materials that houses are built from here, and whatever, setting a hot pot on the floor or just soaking water. Seems like most of the houses overseas are made of concrete, so it's not an issue to just dump water on the floor and wash it around. And here it just destroys the floors. And so I've had a lot of maintenance issues from people just not knowing how things can be destroyed so easily.
Wow. So they'll try to wash the floor with a boiling pot of hot water, and
Yeah, they'll just, dump water, like buckets of water on the floor, and, it just destroys the subfloor. It destroys, depending on what kind of floor it is. And then also carpet is just such a mess that I just don't even want to put carpet in any properties anymore because it just gets destroyed too quickly.
That seems like a lot of training you have to go through to make sure your house is well kept.
Yeah, and that's just and even just normal tenants. People just don't know how things can break, and then they're like, "Well, why can't I get my security deposit back?" And you're like, "Well, this is damaged, and it's very expensive to put all new carpets in is very expensive." They just don't know the expense of things.
What do you find is the most expensive thing in owning these properties?
Yeah, I would say carpets that have to be replaced. Tenants are pretty tough on carpets, and you just if you get a mess, stain somewhere, you got to replace the whole thing most often. I have another issue if it's if I'm paying the water. Water bills can go up if any utilities, if the tenant's not paying, can go up goes high, and try to talk with them to try to bring it down. You find someone else that's more conservative. So I try to buy stuff with separated utilities.
So you also did a direct mail campaign, or at least a small direct mail campaign. Can you tell me what the result of that was?
Yeah, Brian, I have pretty good response rate with that. It was mainly just seeing properties that are distressed and just either mailing the owner or putting a note on the door. So one of the properties I bought, I just put a note on the door, and the same day the owner called me up, said, "Get down here quick." So I went through it. He was looking to sell it for $30,000. I offered him $8,000, and I bought it for $13,000.
Now, why was he so hot to sell, and why was he willing to give it away at $13,000?
Well, he had bought it on land contract and then didn't have the money for fix up. He had been sitting there for a year. I had actually looked at it on the MLS 2 years earlier and didn't buy it. So he bought it then, I think for a little bit more than what I bought it for. And then I had bought it, and we renovated it to quite a nice standard. Got it all in for $60,000, and it rents for $1,200 a month for a duplex with new furnaces, all that stuff. So
you put $45,000 into it to bring everything up to date.
Yeah, basically $45,000 plus some other stuff into it. So we're all in for $60,000. We have new bathrooms, new kitchen, new flooring, new heating system. It's a real good property.
And this is a house. How much does it rent for?
Yeah, it's a duplex.
Oh, it's a duplex.
So it rents for about $1,200 total.
So $600 a side, huh? Mm-hmm. What is each side? One bedroom, two bedroom?
The upstairs is a one bedroom, and the downstairs is a two bedroom.
Okay, so $1,200 altogether. Split utilities.
Split utilities. They pay all for everything. So it works out great. We've had great tenants in there because we renovated it to a nice quality. So we have really good tenants in there.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it's worth today?
Well, I don't see any duplexes on the market that are selling for under 100 unless they're really trashed. I think it'd sell for 100. It has a lot of equity in there.
Yeah, not bad. That's a pretty good result from slapping a note on the door.
Yeah. I've had a lot of other people contact me. They haven't turned into anything great because they've owed too much on the property. But this one turned out well. We own it all cash. It's a great property.
Do you have any debt on it?
No. Nope.
So basically, you're once you pay your expenses, you're probably getting 50% of
right.
that cash flow, like of the income that it's generating, which is around $14,000 a year.
Half of that
goes to expenses, and the other half goes in your pocket.
Right. Yep. And a lot of the stuff has been updated. So, depending on how much we need, it may be less than 50%. I don't know.
Good deal. See. So you also have created some personal relations with different companies that have led to other deals. Why don't you tell me about one of those?
Yeah. So in the 2016, bought a couple deals on land contract. And then the end of 2016, through that same company, they came to me with a property that the owner the buyer of the land contract was defaulting, and they just said, well, you can just take it over as is.
They called you up and said, hey, we've got an owner who's defaulting on their loan. Right. Do you want to come take it over?
Yeah. So then I took it over, and they originally wanted quite a bit down. The property wasn't in the greatest shape, so I offered a lower down payment, and then they came back to me and changed it and said, well, we can give it to you for 0% down. The owner or the buyer of the land contract will pay $4,000 to get out of it, and you can take it over as is. It was $29,000. We bought it. It's amortized over 30-year, fixed with a balloon at 5 years, 10% interest. So the payment's $288 a month, and it rents for $1,100. We did some small fix up to it and rented it out. It's been just a great cash flowing property.
Wow, what a fantastic deal! So you didn't have to put any money down. You're paying 10% on a roughly $30,000 loan, which you just took over, and
right.
In 5 years you have to basically either refi or sell it or pay off the remainder in cash.
Right. Yeah. So basically, the only thing we had to put in is some fix up to get it rentable.
How much did you put in to fix up?
We put about $5,000 into it. Maybe a little bit less, but we'll put a little bit more over the time. Mm-hmm. But we renting it out for $1,100 as is, and then over the time we'll put some new siding on it and fix it up some, and probably increase the rents.
And why did this lender call you about this property? I mean, how did you create that relationship in the first place?
Well, yeah, I've been working with him. We bought 3 other properties from him on land contract, and I've always pay about 5 days early, and it comes through my bank automatic, and they've been happy. They've been real happy with that. I always make sure anyone I borrow money from, I pay early and always pay.
So that's obviously paid off because this company thought of you when they wanted someone to take over this loan.
Yeah, it has. I always think, what would I want? Because I have tenants that pay me, and the tenants that pay me early, I think of them so much higher than the tenants that are pay a little bit late or even on time.
Yeah, that's an important point. Any other deals like that?
Well, yeah, actually, here's a real good one. I bought a property real close to Bridge, downtown where all the development's happening. And the owner originally wanted $80,000 cash. We kind of built a relationship. We kept talking to him about it. A year later, we offered him it on a land contract where he would hold the note for $63,000, and we put I think we put 10% down at 4% interest. So
oh wow, so you got a discount on the property, you got 4% interest and only 10% down,
and it's completely amortized. There's no balloon on it. It's amortized over 12 years. I just did the numbers and said, well, we can make this with the cash flow. We're still getting cash flow from it, plus it's amortized over 12 years at 4% interest. And he's happy because he gets payments. He's older and he wanted to be done with it. He gets an early payment every month, and he's super happy with it.
How was it you were able to get him to lower his price?
I think it was just keeping up with him, keeping the relationship there, and just asking him if he wanted to sell later. He didn't want to put it on the MLS for some reason. He didn't want to work with a realtor. So we just slipped in there, and just for those that don't want to deal with that, they don't want to have their tenants moving out or whatever because it's selling. Some reason they don't want to spook the tenants. So it was just an off-market deal. We took it over for him. We're managing it, and he just gets a monthly payment that he's happy with.
Nice deal. Any other deals like that?
Well, just the ones from that company that we got that $29,000 house. I bought some other properties from them where it's 9% interest. We put basically $2,000 down. I bought it for $44,000 and hope to refinance it for $95,000 here. Talked with the bank. We put quite a bit of money into it and redid the bath and new floors and stuff, updated it. It was kind of trash from a tenant, so they didn't do any fix up. They just sold it as is. And so it looked bad, but it really wasn't a ton of work that needed to be put in. We'll probably have $10,000 into it, and we'll refinance it here soon.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a knack for finding reasonably priced homes.
Well, yeah, I have experience with construction, so I can look at and see, okay, well, this looks terrible to someone, but it really is simple for cost wise. So I try to find things that don't have high cost items, basically. So this one was more cosmetic. Most people look at it and say, oh, it looks horrible. Well, yeah, that's the ones I like. The ones that look terrible but don't have major fix up for cost.
And what advice do you have for people out there who are listening to this and thinking, hey, I'd like to do what you're doing?
Well, I would say that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth. I think they should just read as many books as they can get their hands on about real estate. Go to the meetups and different things, talk to people, find maybe a partner to do something with. If they have some money, they could invest it with someone that they trust and know, and then kind of learn the ropes with that person. I think it's something that you can't give up on because it's very, very difficult in the beginning. There's so many things to learn. There's so many things that can just go wrong. You have to be someone that continues to persist and not someone that just gives up.
What are some of the books that you would recommend?
The first one that got me into it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was very inspired by that. Just the thinking of building passive income that works for you. That just somehow clicked with me. And some of the other ones, Gary Keller, are good. The One Thing really kind of changed my focus. A lot of the Rich Dad series are great. I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I don't like to read. So while I work, I listen to that, and there's just a ton of great ones out there.
Great. Well, Benjamin, thanks so much for sharing all this with us. You definitely have a incredible background, and the fact that you were able to kind of forge your way into real estate and do it the way you've done it, I think is very inspiring. So thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Thanks so much, Brian. It was great to be on the show, and just greatly appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.